All right. I'm going to start by explaining that this test review is going to be way harder than the actual test. Guys, the test is multiple choice, which means like probably all of it, if not like 90% of it, can be done or checked in your calculator. Okay, so this is a review. This is not multiple choice. So if you can understand this without multiple choice, then this test should be a piece of cake. Okay, so quadratic formula is x equals plus, or sorry, that's not even right. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay. Factored form, just remember that's when it's written like this, x plus something, x plus or minus something. Okay, something like that. Remember, they could both be plus, they could both be minus, it doesn't matter. It's just when the factors are in here. Okay, vertex form is y equals a x minus h squared plus k. And standard form is y equals a x squared plus bx plus c. Okay? So factors is you can, remember I said don't do number 2. So you can do a equals 1, b equals 12, c equals 32. Okay, so we do a times c, which is 32, over b, which is 12. Okay, and what multiplies to give you 32 and adds to give you 12 would be 8 and 4. So my factored form would be x plus 8, x plus 4 equals 0. And guys, to find solutions by hand, you would just set these both equal to 0, which would give you the opposite. So that would give you negative 8 and negative 4. So let's check our work in our calculator, because if this was multiple choice, we could do that. We could find our answers that way, actually. Okay, so we have x squared plus 12x plus 32, second graph. And I should have my solutions where y is 0 is negative 8 and positive, or negative 4, negative 8, negative 4. So that is correct. Okay, so remember I said not to do this one, not to do this one. Okay, here, again, we're going to factor, but here I have a GCF, so I have to take out the GCF. 2, and that leaves me with x squared minus 6x plus 9, half of all of those. Now we should notice right away that this is one of the perfect square trinomials. Okay, and if you don't, you could do it the same way as this one, or if it's multiple choice, you can, do this many different ways. So it should be 2x minus 3 squared. So again, I could have done the diamond, which would have been 9 on top, negative 6. So it would have been negative 3 and negative 3, which is just negative 3 squared. Okay, so this is the same thing as writing 2x minus 3, x minus 3. So 2 equals 0 doesn't work, so that goes away. And then this means it's only going to touch one time. So my x-intercept, which remember is written as a point, is opposite of negative 3, so 3 comma 0. So let's double check that. 2x squared minus 12x plus 18. Oh, not that graph. It touches at 3, and that's it. So therefore my answer is correct. Okay. Solve by completing the square. I don't think this should say completing the square. I think it should say square root method. Because the square is already completed. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides, because what's squared is alone. This cancels that, and I get x minus 1 equals plus or minus something. So let's simplify 8. Gives me 2 and 4. 4 is a perfect square of 2 and 2. Okay, so remember, whatever doubles goes on the outside, and the leftover goes on the inside. Okay, so then I would add 1 to both sides, and I get x equals 1 plus or minus 2 square root of 2. Okay, so we could say 1 plus 2 square root of 2 and 1 minus 2 square root of 2. Okay, these want us to use quadratic formula, which remember we just wrote at the top. Okay, so I need to find my a, b, and c first. A is 3, because remember it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So b is whatever's in front of x, and c is whatever's alone, which is negative 8. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So b, a, and c goes here. And remember, we simplify one at a time. So this gives me negative 10. 2 times 3 gives me 6, and the square root of something. So let's find out whatever that something is. So remember, we just type what's under the house without the house. The radical, if you want to be more mathematical. That rhymed. Okay, 196. Let's see if that's a perfect square. And it is. It gives me 14, so I don't even need the house. This gives me negative 10 plus or minus 14 over 6. So we can do negative 10 plus 14 over 6. And we can do negative 10 minus 14 over 6. So my answer is negative 4 2/3. Okay, I want you to realize though, could we have done this in our calculator? You would have been able to find the negative 4 for sure. You could have typed that in your y equals, gone to your table, seen where y is 0. So if this is multiple choice, you might have been able to do this just by the calculator. Okay, here we need to move the 5. Now I want you to realize this is not in correct order. So pay attention. A goes with x squared, which is negative 1. B goes with x, which is 2, and c is by itself, which is negative 5. So negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So negative 1, negative 1, negative 5, 2, and 2. I know I plugged it in a weird order, okay? So this gives me negative 2. That gives me negative 2 plus or minus something. So we can do, positive 2 squared minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 5. And that gives me negative 16. So the square root of negative 16. Now I know that's going to be imaginary. So remember, we take the negative out and put an I. And now we can take the square root of 16. That's a perfect square. And it gives me 4i. So this ends up being negative 2 plus or minus 4i over negative 2. Well, I want you to realize we can simplify this. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1. Okay, 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. But I want you to realize, since we have this plus and minus, you're always going to really have a positive here. So it's going to just be 2i. Okay, so 1 plus 2i, 1 minus 2i. Now, if you put a negative 2 there, that's fine. It doesn't change anything, because that negative will become a positive, and this positive will become a negative, which is still adding and subtracting. Okay? Last but not least, this is going to be my b, because it has an x. So I'm going to subtract it in the middle. There's no like terms. Okay, so I get a is 1, b is negative 10, and c is 25. Negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So 1, 1, c is 25, b is negative 10. So 2 negatives makes a positive. 2 times 1 is 2. Let's find out what's in the house. And that gives me 0. So guess what? It goes away, because the square root of 0 is 0. Okay, so if you needed, you could type this in the calculator. 10 plus 0 over 2. And then 10 minus 0 over 2. And they both give you 5, which means there's only one solution at 5. And that could have definitely been a calculator problem for sure. Okay. Okay, given the solution negative 3, 1, Find the graph following of the following, assuming a is equal to 1. So we know that we have a solution here at -3, at +1, and it says quadratic equation in factored form. Well, remember, that's just the opposites. So x plus 3, x minus 1. Okay, so or y equals, you can put a y there too, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I can type that in my calculator. X plus 3, x minus 1. Okay, and now it wants to find standard form. The best way to do that is to do FOIL. So x times x is x squared. X times -1 is -1x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times -1 is -3. These are my like terms. So I end up with x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, y equals or equals y, doesn't matter. And I can double check that. So I get x squared plus 2x minus 3, second graph. All my y1s and y2s match, so that is correct. Okay, and then I want it in vertex form. Well, let's look at the, let's find our rainbow. Okay, there's my rainbow, match, match, match. Remember, the middle is your vertex, so -1, -4. -1, -4. Okay, and I know I can graph it from here. -2, -3, -2, -3, 0, -3. Okay, and it's going to look something like this. Okay, now vertex form, remember it's y equals a x minus h squared plus k. Okay, so a is 1, so y equals 1. X minus, well, what is my h? Remember, h comma k is your vertex. So my vertex is -1, -4, -1, -4. Well, if I plug in a -1 here, 2 negatives makes a positive, and then k is -4. There's your equation. Again, we can double check. So let's type that in y3. 1 parentheses x plus 1 parentheses squared minus 4. Go to my table. And they all match. So that means that is correct. So there are my answers. Okay. So it says, what is the solution set for each of the following? Show work. Well, this is when you set them equal to 0. 3x plus 2 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. Okay, so -1, -1. X equals -1. -2, -2. But here we get 3x equals -2. Divide by 3, divide by 3. So we get -2/3 and -1. Sorry, my watch keeps going off. Okay. Okay, again, -2 equals 0 doesn't even work, so that kind of disappears. And now again, do you realize that it's the opposite? Opposite of +1 is -1. It's only different when there's something here. So what's the opposite of positive or -5? +5. The opposite of +3 is -3. Okay, and again, we could have showed our works. X minus 5 equals 0, plus 5 plus 5. X equals 5, which works. X plus 3 equals 0, minus 3 minus 3. X equals -3, which works. Okay. Realize number 12 goes with the graph. Okay, that's why the graph's there. It was throwing me off for a second, but it's there for that. Okay, 2x plus 5 equals 0, minus 5 minus 5. 2x equals -5. Divide both sides by 2. So one of my answers is -5/2. And then I have 3x plus 4 equals 0. Minus 4 minus 4. 3x equals -4. Divide by 3. Divide by 3. And -4/3. Okay, so there's that. And now on this one, it says, what is the solution set for when y equals -4? Because remember, f of x just means y. Well, look, it's labeled, so it's just where these two lines touch, which is -1 and 3. Okay, It's just where these touch, here and here. On to the back. Here it says, what is the solution when y is 0? Well, y is 0 right here, so we only see x equals 2. I want you to realize there will be another one here, because 5 and -8, something's gonna touch 0, but the only one we see is 2. Write the quadratic equation in factored form. Well, here it touches at -2 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have opposite of -2 is +2. Opposite of +5 is -5. Okay, remember, inside the parentheses is always opposite. Inside, opposite. Okay, sketch a graph whose zeros are -5 minus I and -5 plus I. Well, it's imaginary, and I'm not asking you to be specific, so just know it does not touch the x-axis. Anything that does not touch the x-axis I will accept here. 16 says sketch a graph whose factored form is this. So what's the opposite of -2 is +2. Opposite of +4 is -4, and it's going to open upwards. Okay. Here, match the equation with the correct quadratic form. Okay. Well, A is 2, B is 3, C is -4. So I know the opposite of +3 is -3. So this is going to be either be B, D, or C. So let's look. So negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Okay. A is 2, A is 2, C is -4, B is 3, B is 3. So I know it's going to be -3. Plus or minus over 4, a +4. So right away I should know it's D. Okay, because it has a +4 on the bottom. So really you don't even have to keep going, but we can. So 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times -4 gives me 41. So square root of 41, which is correct. Okay. Here, I have negative B plus or minus square root B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. So it's -2, -2, -4, and B is +3, +3. So again, I have a -3 plus or minus square root of something over -4. I want you to realize that we have to type that in the house. 3 squared minus 4 times -2 times -4, which gives me -23. So -3 plus or minus square root of -23 over -4 is B. Now this one should be the simple one. It's the only one that has a minus for my B. 2 negatives makes a positive, so A has to be my answer, because remember the front is opposite. And therefore A, B, D, so I only have C left. If we wanted to double check, we could just do in the house 3 squared minus 4 times A times +4, which is C. Squared minus 4 times -2 times 4. And that gives me 41, which does work with C. Okay. Let me write that down. Okay. -3 equals +3, which is why it's A. Okay. Okay, here it says write the following in standard form. Remember, standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. A here. Remember, that's opposite of this for b. Okay, so a is -2, so -2x squared. B is opposite, so -3x, and c plus 4. again, B, B, A, C. Okay, so 1x squared, opposite of negative 6 is positive 6x, and C is minus 15. What are the names for where the graph crosses the x-axis? So we can call it solutions, call it roots, call it zeros, as well as x-intercepts. Okay, what are my solutions here? Well, it's not pretty, so we can guesstimate. We can say 0.5 and 3.5. What are solutions to the graph above? Negative 5 and 1. Okay, for the value of C, will the graph of this be the same? For what value of C will they be the same? So first off, this would be multiple choice, and you could plug in your options here in Y1 and this in Y2, and you see which one matches. Or we can realize that this is a perfect square. So we would have subtracted C from both sides. So we have Y minus C equals, we would also take out our GCF, 2x squared plus 6x plus something. Okay. So we know half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So this ends up being 2x plus 3. So remember, 2 times 9 is 18, so I had to add 18 to this side as well. So I have negative C plus 18. So now I have to add C, subtract 18, subtract 18. So C would be 0. 2x squared plus 12x plus 0, and then 2x plus 3 squared minus 18. I was right. So C would be 0 because it doesn't change. This one's a little confusing, but remember on the test it'll be multiple choice and you can plug them in and see which one works. For what value of B will this have negative 12 as its only 0? Okay, so we can see if this is a perfect square. Second square root 144. It is a perfect square, so we know it's going to be a negative something because that's why we have. No, it's going to be positive. Okay, so we would always take, I want you to realize we would do B, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, sorry guys. B over 2 squared. Okay, that's how we'd find this number. So the square root of that was 12. So B over 2 equals 12. So we would multiply both sides by 2. So it should be like 24 or negative 24. So let's check. So x squared plus 24x plus 144, second graph. So negative 12 is my answer. So B equals 24. Again, your test will not be this hard. It'll be multiple choice. You'll be able to plug it in. Here, guys, do this in your calculator. Realize that negative 4 squared just gives me negative 16. So the same thing as saying square root of negative 16. Take out that and put I. Square root of 16 is 4. So this ends up being 4i. If one solution is 4 plus 3i, what's the other one? It's going to be the opposite. So 4 minus 3i. Alright guys, test tomorrow. I know these two are hard. If you have questions, bring them to me tomorrow. I will help you with them for sure. But just know it's multiple choice, and I'll show you how to do that in the calculator if you're not understanding when it's multiple choice. Good luck. You'll do great.